Not too long ago, I was back at school, and quarantine wasn't happening. But I was with my friend Lachlan, and we were talking in history class about the idea of zero and the concept of zero. And the reason this kind of struck us is in our history class we had talked a lot about how in the very old times, like 500 BCE, the Gupta, which are like the old Indian empire, they had invented zero or like created zero or whatever. And so we kind of had this problem where it was more of a running joke that was kind of like, well, how can you invent zero or how can you create zero? I mean, it's not like one guy beforehand didn't know that he had zero cows or zero children, and afterwards they thought, oh, I do have zero children. And so putting aside all of the kind of like, technical stuff, we instead tried to develop our own ideas for kind of what this zero was. We were trying to rationalize a difference in how a person would approach zero if they didn't know that it was a concept versus if they did know it was a concept. Okay, so the number one theory was the theory of the Gupta farmer who does understand the concept of zero. And so for this farmer, when his cows are all killed off, right, and he's got no cows, what we assume is zero now, what this Gupta farmer understands is that it is not just an absence of cows, but a definitive number. And to give something a number is a pretty big deal, because then you're saying that it can be applied to math. When you say you've got zero cows, the properties of math are kind of established and put onto this. Theory number two, which is the theory about the Gupta farmer who does not understand the concept of zero. And so for this, when this poor farmer has all of his cows stripped away from him, when he has nothing left, what is left is a lack of cows. It's not a definitive zero. It's not a number of cows like you can say, well, I've got one cow, two cows. There's no mathematics behind it. It's kind of just a concept of a lack of a number. So it is there in turn assigned almost a more qualitative status. He does not understand on a basic intuitive level that, well, of course he understands that he can't multiply his zero cows and reproduce them and get more, but he does not get the concept that it is a mathematical number. And so these theories are, they sound really stupid in the fact that both people know that they can't multiply these cows or divide these cows or square these cows and get cows out of nothingness. But the idea is that once you understand this concept, it's applied into, their everyday life. It's more of a logical way of thinking than a practical thing. So, these Gupta farmers, they've got their Minecraft cows and...
Wait. Okay, I've gotten really off track here, but we'll come back to this, but let's get to something a little bit more entertaining. This is my buddy who I was talking about the cows with.
That's a long drop. I don't want to die.
His name's Lachlan.
Look at that! Look at that llama! Wait!
He's a long-time
Look at
best friend.
Okay.
And he's a little bit stupid sometimes. But aside from that, I kind of wanted to document the current time and ask him a little bit more about Minecraft, a game that we hold dearly to our hearts together.
So, what did you think of my cow theory with the no cows versus zero cows?
Well, I think that's perfectly logical. Because in my hand, if there wasn't oxygen in the atmosphere, and I held my hand out, I would have an infinite amount of possibilities of nothing. So I could have no cows, I could have no cell phones, I could have no anything.
Friends and I know Lachlan as this guy who he creates a lot of these theories that are super far out and abstract, but if you give him enough time, he generally explains his crazy ideas and makes them have some sort of sense in real life.
Zero is the only... Wait, what'd you say?
So how would you, if you were to talk to somebody on the street, how would you explain to them the difference between experiencing zero when you understand what zero is versus if you didn't understand zero as like a concept?
It's hard for me to put in perspective because I've understood zero my entire life.
Do you find that there is inherent there's something in video games that you couldn't find if they weren't there. Do you think that if you lived right now in quarantine without video games, how would that kind of affect your life?
Oh, well, I didn't have video games for like the first 2 weeks of quarantine.
Okay.
And it was pretty lonely because you could text your friends, but there's no content really. You can't really like check in. In games, you can like have this like random, like spontaneous talks with your friends that really like would never be brought up otherwise.
Okay, great. And so how has Minecraft in particular impacted your real life and I guess your decisions and like especially your future? Has it impacted your future at all?
Well, I don't know because I haven't really looked back at my Minecraft playing, but I think it's made me value creativity and like just like different set of skills and how different people approach different problems.
Has it affected your I guess decisions or what you want to do in the future at all?
Kind of. I had a wave where I wanted to be an architect, but I didn't really. Once I did more research and realized the math that went into it,
Yeah.
and I'm not a math person, obviously.
Yeah.
I decided not to. But it's definitely given me more of like a creative outlook on like everyday things.
Switching away from Minecraft again, I wanted to talk about how I'm also going through this wave where Minecraft is influencing me in a way where I feel like I want to maybe consider pursuing an architecture career. And I think it's really important to recognize that a lot of paths open up, especially how young I am, and how I'm addressing those paths and um, how I'm making those hard decisions, I guess.
Okay, so I am I'm here now because as I was talking about before, aspirations aspirations are kind of a big problem for me, and especially just finding something that I really want to do for the rest of my life is a really big problem. The whole architecture thing is not the first time that I've had an idea that I thought I was going to want to do forever, and it is far from the last one that's going to happen. I have grappled with, and this isn't to, sound like pitying or anything, but I've definitely grappled with, like, the issue of just not knowing where to go, as I'm sure the majority of teenagers have. And I've gone through a lot of ideas and thought that they were, the most grand idea ever, and I would never ever want to do anything else. Especially when I was younger, music was one of those big things. One of the things I can confidently say, yes, I'm good at this, is trumpet. I've been playing for a while now, and I've always been kind of near the top of my section, and now I'm section leader, and it is one of the things that I really, really enjoy, and for a little while, I'd say around my freshman and sophomore year, the beginning of my sophomore year, I was really into it, and I really thought I wanted to do that, like, for the rest of my life, right? I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go big, I'm gonna be a trumpet player, or I'm gonna do something in music, and I realized it wasn't for me. I feel like along my way of finding things that I want to do, I've been through a lot of failures. One of those failures was drumming, and drumming was the prime example of me really getting excited about something and then just completely flopping on it. So I had watched the movie Whiplash, and I loved it, and I loved the performances. It was a great movie overall. But I really loved the drummer, and I started going insane over him, and Buddy Rich especially. I got super excited, delved super deep into jazz, and I figured, I really wanted to drum like whatever his name is from Whiplash. This was it back in, the eighth grade, and my girlfriend, shout out Evie Dershel, her dad was a drummer, and he had this old drum set that he didn't need, and I was like, don't give this to me, like, I am a young kid and I don't know, I've never drummed before, but he was super insistent that I get it, and so I got it, and I was super excited, and I took a few drum lessons, and I sat down in the basement here and went at it, and I kind of sucked, and I tried, but I really did kind of suck. And that was a pretty, I thought I was going to get better, and obviously it was super inexperienced, and I was really going at it for a little while, but it proved to me that my excitement kind of overtook me way too much, which is what I find a lot of times happens, and it wasn't enough to get actual results. So, I drummed, and I liked it, I really did enjoy it, but the problem is that I just didn't have any reason to want to drum anymore. My biggest reason for wanting to drum was seeing Buddy Rich and that, especially the movie Whiplash, and just being like, oh my god, that kid can do it. That kid he's motivated, he's going to like Juilliard, I think it was Juilliard. He's got a, intense teacher that really pushes success, and I wanted to emulate that as much as I could, and I guess I thought back then, and I still do often today, that the drumming was the part of it that I wanted to emulate, but what I really realized is that I didn't want to emulate the drumming. I wanted to emulate the character. I wanted to be like that kid. I wanted to be, the kid who got a, ruthless instructor or a ruthless teacher who was beating him down, and he triumphantly overcomes and proves to, his family that, oh, music isn't a terrible career. It's you can be the greatest ever. And I wanted to be that kid who, went home, and when they said, hey, when my uncle said, hey, you want to play football? And I said, no, I got to go drum practice. I wanted to be, the kid who succeeded that way, I guess. And I think that that's a really big mistake that I make often, is I jump too quickly into things, trying to emulate something, and it turns out a failure because it's not really the subject matter itself. It's kind of the character that I want to be. But aside from the whole drumming spiel, the uncertainties of kind of the future are the most terrifying things, because as much as I can want to emulate a character, and as much as I can grow to be, that kid or whatever, or grow to be more, the more I grow to have more integrity and kind of a work ethic, I guess, that still doesn't take away from the fact that I have no fucking clue what I want to do. I think that being around my friends and kind of doing things with them and trying new things with them greatly inclines me to want to do them more. I have just done so many things just because my friends have done them, and it's not like a bad peer pressure thing. It's things like skateboarding. Like, I would have never skateboarded unless my friends were doing it. It's something that I was wrapped up in because of my friends, and it's the only reason really that I do it today. I found that even in quarantine. Yeah, but I think that really the true reason that this makes any impact on my life is I the more and more I think about the cow theorem, and the more and more I realize how just like truly ridiculous it is. I mean, there is like almost nothing as stupid as that I've ever thought of, and it is so unapplicable to like anything, and it is just so far out and flawed. But the reason that I talk about it now is because I think about how the only reason that I was able to just conjure something just so just out there and weird and making no sense, but the only reason was because I was just stimulated by my friend Lachlan and the people that I talked to at school. I believe that my friend being there and us kind of having these like small quarrels / a slight competition, like a friendly competition to see who can create a more understandable theory, was the only reason that I was able to use that thought process. And no matter how flawed the thought process was, I feel like it really challenged my creativity to kind of come up with something on the spot like that cow theorem. And I believe that's something really integral to like how I want to grow as like a thinker. I really want to be able to, think on the fly, and I want to be able to create kind of a process that is a very like step-by-step process on how to formulate a concept, how to formulate an idea. Those social situations are kind of the only way that I can stimulate that side of my brain. I guess is it so. So just kind of re-asking the question, just to get like a different response. I guess or just, what is the main just like thing that you see in video games that you don't see in other social interactions? I guess.
Just like you're not isolated, but you are. Like you're with people, but you're not.
Yeah. Okay.
So I feel like you can kind of do things that you wouldn't do with social interactions. Like if I'm hanging out with my homies in person, I'll never be able to dig this 48 by 48 hole.
Yeah, certainly.
You know, like different conversation will go down.
And I think that that can also go to just like we have done so many stupid things that would have never been possible in real life. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think also I would have never ever kind of thought about the path of being an architect if I were to have just played Minecraft by myself. Because
yeah.
I mean, like, I can't even imagine just, like, being inspired enough by my own solo playing to, like, want to pursue that as a path. I think that, like a really big part of that was just, like, having friends there with me who were part of the process the whole way. I really have just stopped kind of skating because I just don't really have any friends to go skating with anymore. But I think that in the future, especially, once I get to college, I will be surrounded by more people. New people, especially, is a big thing. New reasons to do things, new things to do. Well, and do you have any word to yourself in the future when you look back on this?
Man, don't forget to go back and look at the old Minecraft worlds on my PlayStation.
That's true. I feel like
I want to go back and look back.
These are a very good time capsule because we like everything we built kind of has some memories attached to it.
Yeah, and I feel like I'll remember them.
And it's a very good reminder of the friendships we made and like kind of just like what we did. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, thank you, Lachlan.
Yes, sir.
The only reason that anybody ever appreciates something is when it's taken from you. And so, in a time like now, it does suck, yes, to be not around people, but it also gives me a time to reflect on how stupid some of those ideas were, like the cow theorem. Damn, looking back on that.